All right, all right. Hey, Vernon, how are you?
Hi.
What's up, coach?
Yes. Hey, Chip, how are you?
Hanging in there. What about yourself? You all ready?
I see Ray. That's a name from the past. Hey, Ray. I'm doing good, Chip. What's going on, Ray? Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
How you been? Long time no see.
I know, still around.
Are you still where you live now?
Fontana now. So still
Okay.
still in the IE.
Are you coaching high school? I'm
Not high school, but I am coaching at Imua. Still with Mark.
What is it called? You what?
Imua.
Oh, that's
Imua
right.
volleyball.
Yeah. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Do you guys have what's his name with you guys? Is the old Mavericks? What's his name?
Oh, no, we don't have. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but no, he's not with you guys. Okay, gotcha.
No.
Gotcha. All right, good. We got a good crowd here. Not bad. You all have taken my clinics except for you, right, Ray? Wow, you took it live one time.
Yeah, what live one?
Yeah, I remember. All right, we'll wait a couple minutes here. This is a good one. So who's hey Roy, how are you, Roy? How's your team?
Good, coach. We're good. First game Saturday, so we're excited.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we travel to Fresno. We play Humboldt State, and we play Fresno Pacific. Little round robin.
Oh, that's great. Great.
Yeah, we're
All
excited.
right. Hopefully you apply some of the things you learned in the clinics.
Oh, I always do, coach.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll wait a couple minutes and then we'll get going. Hopefully you guys have some questions for me. Now, Vernon, you're retired, right? And Mike, you coach high school, right?
Yes, I coach high school.
Hi, Carolyn. All right. Let's see here, not bad. I think we have about 25 signed up.
Wow.
But as usual, not everybody will be on the call. Yes, hi, Carolyn. Thank you. Now, once we start the clinic, if you guys don't mind, you can go on mute. You can either use the chat section to communicate or ask questions, or you can just unmute. We don't have a lot of people, so that's all good. I've never done this topic in particular. I mean, I've done bits and pieces, but I think it was Mike. You gave me the idea, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yep. That was your idea, so I got to give you credit.
thank you. We start tomorrow, so this is perfect.
Tomorrow, all right. That's great. Do you have? Is it a tryout type of thing, or do you have your team set?
Tomorrow's tryout, yeah.
So you are gonna have to cut kids. Got it.
Yeah, we have about 70 kids trying out.
70. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Give it another minute, and we'll go from there. Let me actually test this. I want to test it right now because we've always had internet issues, but I'm sitting in a place where you see the router over me here to my right. This is so hopefully I don't have any issues. Sometimes if I'm in a different room, I don't think the connection is as good. So let me just test it. I think I want to use. Oh, here we go. I see it now. Did you guys see that? Okay.
It's starting.
Okay. Still kind of going in and out.
It's coming.
So I think what I need to do is I need to
Okay.
close.
We got it.
You got it?
Yep.
But it kind of goes in and out. So let me close some of the files. I think that's typically what happened. You guys see this, right?
Just went off.
I think Excel takes a lot, so let me close the Excel. How about now? Is that better?
Not yet.
Black screen.
Okay, so I'm gonna try the Word doc. Let me close it.
Yep.
There we go.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm gonna try the Word doc. Let me just open it. Okay, so let's see here. I just opened it. How about now?
Yep.
You guys see it?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, good. All right. So I'm not sure how this is going to go. Hopefully, call service. Okay. All right. So you guys ready to start? Let me see. Let me make sure everybody is. Let's see here. I want to make sure I can see everybody maybe. So we just had one more person here. There are threes. Okay. All right, I think I'm going to try here. I go, all right. Hello, hey, Miguel, how are you? Okay, I think we're ready to start. So why don't we do this? So let me share. Oops. All right. So for some reason, I don't know why I can't see you guys on top. I prefer the other way. Give me 1 sec. Let me just check. I think that's better. Here we go. Can you guys see this? Make it slow, smaller. Can you see this? Right there is perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
good. So, I mean, this is obviously, I chose this. Mike gave me the idea. I figured it's a good one to talk about. What do we do when we, it's not only the first 2 weeks of the season. That's one thing, but you get, like you said, 70 kids in your gym. How do I pick and choose my team? It's kind of like club tryouts, but it's a bit different, obviously, between school and club. But the bottom line is, how can I pick the best, 12, 15, 20 players to represent your team, to represent your program? So I know a lot of coaches, they go about it different ways. I'm just going to share with you what I think is best, what I think is conducive to putting a good roster that's going to get you some W's or be successful on the court. So hopefully you guys brought some questions, and like I said, this is my first time doing this specific topic, but I think I'm going to enjoy doing it. So I always start by saying, winning is not everything. And this is kind of my motto, by the way. This is what when I read this, and it's not mine, obviously, it's Vince Lombardi. I said, you know what, this is it. I'm gonna make this my motto, and I like it a lot because it talks about what I'm gonna say next. Winning is not everything. Winning is the only thing. So for a long time, people thought that he was talking about, the winner, the wins and losses on the in terms of how many matches you win and how many matches you lose. And I don't think he was talking about that. What he was talking about is the preparation to win is really what counts. And I like that, because in the end, that's really what's important. What's important is that you, as a coach, you can say to yourself, did I prepare my team, for to the best of my abilities as a coach? And that's key. So I always tell my players, especially later on in my career, stop talking about winning championships. And I started talking about how we can be champions, how we can act and conduct ourselves as athletes, by coming to work every day, all the good things that you guys talk about to your players, such as personality traits, habits, what I call standards of performance. Okay, so winning is not everything. Winning is the only thing. Okay? You have to do, as a coach, you have to do everything in your power to prepare your team to be the best that they can be. Okay, so I thought maybe I would share with you guys what I call it old school practice, or you can call it old school volleyball, but I prefer not to call it old school volleyball because I'm a big fan of old school volleyball. There's a lot of good things that I like about old school volleyball. So I'm going to call it old school practice because volleyball has evolved over the years. And but if you go 20 years ago, maybe even 30 years ago, that's how practice used to be, time practice. So I can show you some of my practice plans where basically I had everything timed. Between 6 and 6:15, we're gonna pass. 6:15 to 25, we're gonna hit against the block, whatever it is that you're working on. So you block, you practice, you organize it on paper. It looks great because it's very organized. But my question to you as a coach is volleyball, the game, the sport of volleyball, is it a timed sport? It is not a timed sport. So I tend to do things that make sense to me. So if the game itself is not timed, why would I want to put a time block on a specific game or drill that I'm trying to do in practice? Okay, but that's how old school, that's what they used to do back in the days. And again, I'm only pointing the finger at myself because I did all that stuff. So don't take it personal. Block practice, or what I call positional work. I still do block practice sometimes, but I keep it to a minimum. If I do, I try to make it as game-like as possible. But what is the block practice? I go on a box and I hit 50 balls at my team or a certain player. And I ask the player that you have to dig the ball 20 times in a row, for example, or a team of maybe 5 players, 6 players. And you keep hitting and digging, hit, dig, hit, dig, hit, dig. That's called block practice. Okay. I'm going to explain when we get to the next, paragraph what the opposite of block practice is. But again, today, still a lot of coaches like the block practice. We like to do things such as, hey, you're going to serve, we're going to pass 20 balls with the last 5 in a row. And you're not going to get out of the drill or the game until you can pass 5 in a row, just as an example. Okay. I personally tend not to do stuff like that because, again, tell me a player at any level who's going to be able to pass 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 perfect balls in a row, or as a team, not only as a player. It's just not the way the game is played. And that's why I stay away from that. Okay. Jog and stretch. I do a lot of recruiting, obviously for my college team. So I visit a lot of practices, and sometimes I sit in practices and, the practice starts with the players jogging and stretching, and it takes them a good 15 to 20 minutes before they touch the ball. So that's, to me, especially in the US, where time is, constrained. Is limited. You don't have the time. You don't have a lot of time. If you only have, 20 hours a week with your team, you cannot exceed that, for example, in certain, leagues or conferences. So time is constrained. It's constricted. That's the word I want to use. So again, to me, when you jog and stretch, that's 15, 20 minutes of wasted time. You can still warm up and touch the ball by doing some low impact stuff. Like, for example, you can play pepper over the net. You can play a tipping game, maybe 2-on-2 inside the 10-foot line. Where it's low impact, it doesn't require a high jump, but you're touching the ball. And that's really the key is as soon as you start practice, if you start at 6, you want to touch the ball at 6. And that to me is important. Okay. Any questions so far? Good. Pepper. The only day I do pepper is the day I have, we have a game. It's because we can only use half the court. That is the only day I do pepper. Any other day, I don't even do pepper. I don't even touch pepper. Okay. And I know a lot of you guys during tryouts, you're probably going to start, your warm up by jogging and stretching. And that's why really I'm bringing this up. And then you're going to have the girls pepper because you want to see how good their ball control is. And that's the mistake that coaches make. Pepper does not show you how good somebody's ball control is. All it does, it improves the feel of the ball on the platform. But it doesn't improve your ball control. Why? Because ball control involves somebody taking an approach, jumping, hitting, sometimes over the block, sometimes around the block. And then it requires a player to move from a certain spot on the floor to another one to get in a good position to dig the ball. That to me is ball control. So it's the whole package. You can't just work on ball control by hitting a straight ball at a player and taking all the other visual elements away from it. And this is not just volleyball. I believe in that in any sport, in my opinion. And again, it's not only an opinion. A lot of it is actually based on scientific facts. Okay. Single contact drills. Well, a team has to get, and we talked about it, a certain number of contacts. If I want to work on serving, I don't just do serving. If I want to work on passing, I don't just do passing. Like, for example, especially serving. I see it at all levels, club, high school, and college. See, we have a question here. When do you use block practice? Yeah, I will answer this question in a second. I'm going to answer this question. So, for example, serving. And I see it at all levels. We tend to play, and then the last 10 minutes of practice, we ask the girls to go back and serve. And they serve 50 balls, 60 balls in a row. Well, you tell me in a game of volleyball, when is the person going to serve 50 balls in a row? If anything, they're going to serve 3, maybe 4, depending on the level. And then they're going to have to wait 6 rotations before they serve again. Why is this important to me? Because again, you need to train the way the game is played. And that's why in practice, I make every player serve 3 balls total. Even if we're doing 6-on-6, everybody in the back row, all 3 players have to serve. Okay, unless I get more specific, I want a certain player to get more touches than another player. Okay, so that to me is important. Like that to me is working on serving, because you serve 50 balls in a row. By the time you get to 10, you're kind of in rhythm. I mean, you have the momentum, you have the rhythm, and that rhythm is you're not gonna have that in a game when you only serve 1 ball and then wait 6 rotations and then you have to serve again. So that to me is important. Okay, I'm going to answer your question, Caroline, in a sec. Deep court game. I'm a big fan of deep court game. I still play deep court game, but I don't do it as often as I do anymore because, again, I love deep court. But deep court to me is more hitting and digging. So I play more at the net because I want my team to serve and pass more. So when you play at the net, rallies tend to last less. Take less time before they end. What does that mean? It means you have more time to serve and pass. But when you play deep court, okay, rallies tend to take longer, okay, which is good for hitting and digging. But again, it all depends on what your objective is, okay? 6-on-6 with the coach controlling the entry of the ball. You play 6-on-6, and then you go free ball to one side, and then you go free ball to the other side. And then we keep going, 3 balls, 3 balls. And you are, as a coach, controlling how you enter the ball. That's, again, old school. Nowadays, I prefer that the players do all that. Like if I want to send the ball over the net, I specifically tell, hey, Lisa, I'm going to send the ball to you. And you're going to send the ball over by either jumping and hitting, set it, or maybe bump pass it over the net, whatever the case might be. And that's a little more game-like. Now, with the lower level teams, I would say you probably want to control that yourself, but you want to progress into that eventually. Let the players enter the ball, with the exception of the serve, obviously, right? With the exception of like I've seen a lot of practices where the coach is doing all the serving. Again, you're gonna get better at serving. We don't want that. We want the players to enter the ball by serving. Okay. Conditioning. I still see a lot of coaches, they take a good 10, 15 minutes out of practice. Or even they do it after practice. Like to me, if you do it after practice, like if you're gonna spend 10, 15 minutes in the gym, that's the point I'm making. Why not play volleyball? So you can easily tell me, yeah, but we do it after practice. But yes, you can still touch the ball after practice if you have that extra time. So, we practice, and then at the end of practice, we do suicides or we do whatever to condition the girls. Or we ask them to run a mile, before practice or after practice. To me, I believe in conditioning as you play. And obviously it has to do with the way you structure your practice, the tempo, how many water breaks you take, for example, we have a concept in our gym called 80%. Every time the ball is dead, the players have to go 80% speed. So we don't waste any time. Because like I said, in the end, as a coach, my number one job is to provide the touches for my team. Okay? So old school or old practice, 3 to 4 hours. I used to do that. I don't do this anymore. My practices nowadays are 1 hour and 40 minutes, 1 hour 45 max. But we go hard. We may take 1 or maybe 2 water breaks, just like you're playing a normal game, maybe, if you call the timeout. But we go hard and we get a lot of touches in 1 hour and 45 minutes. Why? If you play a 5-game match today, if every game goes all the way down to the wire, you may end up playing 2 hours. So again, it goes back to what I said. I like to train the way the game is played. If you're playing a real match, it's going to probably take 1 hour, 1 hour 40, 1 hour 45 if it's a tight match. So I tend not to practice more than that. I want the girls to kind of get into that rhythm. Hey, quick warm up. You ready to play? Let's go. Let's compete. Okay. You do 3-4 hours. What's going to happen is the players are going to pace themselves. Okay. If I'm a player, even if you are a competitor, you're going to be in the gym for a good 3-4 hours. You're going to pace yourself, whether you like it or not. Okay. It's a natural phenomenon. Okay. And then again, going back to your question, Carolyn, more block and less hold. And that's really the opposite. So block practice is basically when you ask me the question, Carolyn, when do I do it? Like today, I do it with my setters a good 45 minutes before practice. So I work with my setters, but guess what? Even when I work with my setters, I actually put live hitters and I have live passers. So my focus is only on the setter, but I let the passers pass and I make sure that the setters have hitters to hit the ball. Okay, so that's more, that's what we call the hole. So you want to practice on setting, you go pass, set, hit. You want to work on hitting, you go pass, set, hit. So my blocked practice is somewhat modified, but it's still blocked because you're really working with the setters and only the setters. If there's one position I spend a lot of time working on or outside of practice is the setting position. Why? Because it takes 3 times as much to make a setter than to make a hitter. Time-wise. Takes a lot of time to train a setter. Okay? Mention must run a mile under a certain time to make the team. So you're about to have tryouts. Don't tell your team that you have to run a mile under whatever, a certain time, 6, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever the time is. In order, I think we have one more question. In order to make the team. Running a mile under a certain time does not mean you don't have a good volleyball player. So don't make that mistake. Running a mile under a certain time, it does not mean your player is not conditioned. You don't need to run a mile in volleyball to be physically conditioned. I played a lot. I was an athlete. I had a good jump. I played many sports. I played volleyball at a very high level, and I barely made the mile under the time that the coach wanted. Okay, so I wouldn't make that mistake. Again, the conditioning in volleyball is not to run a mile. It's a different type of conditioning. Okay. And I'll hit on that later on today. Okay? Players, do as I say without asking many questions. So that's kind of old school again. 20 years ago, I didn't know any better. So if a player asks me a question, and if I don't have an answer, if I don't know, it's because more than likely, I don't know why I'm doing it. Remember, we all tend to do things that we learn from somebody else. Sometimes we don't know why we're doing it. So if a player asks me, it's easy for coaches to say, hey, because I said so. And young coaches make that mistake because they don't know any better. My advice to you as a coach, if you are doing something in your gym, whether it's volleyball or non-volleyball related, make sure you know why you're doing it. Don't just know the how and the what. Know why. There's a why for everything. I mean, the way we set up the nets in our gym, I had a how, a what, and why. We set them up that way. Okay? Any questions? You can unmute if you want. Ask me whatever you want. I think we have one more here.
Well, they
Mike?
feel, yeah,
Yeah.
they feel like they need to warm up and stretch and do all that. So what are the first few things you could do that they feel like they got it done and it's not wasting time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give you a couple ideas here for warm up. So basically, yes, they're going to come in. The first thing they're going to do, they're going to grab a ball and they're going to start hitting the ball down against a wall or to a partner. Right now, if this is before you started practice, let's say your tryouts is at 6 and they come in at 5:50. Let them have their time. Okay, I wouldn't worry about what's going to happen between 5:50 and 6. Okay, so let them, especially if it's a tryout, I kind of let them have their time. But then as soon as 6 o'clock hits, I would do things like, for example, hey, we're gonna pass set. Okay, you're gonna play 2-on-2. This is the net over here. Okay, you guys see it? 2-on-2. You're gonna pass set and then set the ball over the net and then switch. Okay, so you're playing 2-on-2. You can do actually 4 on one half and then 4 on the other half. So you pass set, okay, pass set, and then you set this. I mean, I'm passing to you, you set the ball to me, I set the ball over the net. But when I set the ball over the net, I'm gonna make it, it's called LAS, like a serve. So I'm gonna make that ball flat, fast, kind of looking like a serve, so the passer can work on their technique. You guys see it? You see what I'm saying here? It's low impact. You're not doing any jumping, and you're playing over the net. It makes sense, Mike?
Yep.
So that's one thing you can do. You can do things like tell them grab a ball. Let's have 3 lines of hitters. You can go left, middle, and let me actually put you on. Left, middle, and right. Okay, and then you can tell them grab the ball, and I want you guys to set the ball once, and then set the ball forward a little higher, take an approach, and hit. You're standing about 3-4 feet behind the 10-foot line. So I tell the players, set, hit. Okay? And then I tell them, go ahead and shag the ball and then change lines. Make sure we don't have more than 3 or 4 people in the line. Okay? That's one thing, one way you can do it. Or you can say, okay, let's add a little more challenge. We're going to set, and then we're going to bump set the ball to yourself, and then take an approach and hit. Make sense?
Yep.
So it's single contact, but again, it's little game-like. Actually, they work on setting the ball to themselves, and I tell them, set the ball short, high, take a full approach, and hit. At first, it's probably going to be ugly if they don't have the ball control. But again, that's a good time to evaluate as a coach who's got it and who doesn't. You can actually have them do like a jump serve toss at the net. So they can grab the ball, toss, and then see who can create a pre-spin. I call it a pre-spin. When the ball does this, it's a pre-spin. Okay? Makes sense? Like these are examples. Let me put you here on. Okay? You guys understand? So now what else you can do? You can You can play 2-on-2 inside the 10-foot line. Pass, set, tip. See, all these are low impact. So you can play 2-on-2 and then just kind of play. You can have them split the court maybe in 2 halves. I don't know how many courts you have. If you have more than one, obviously it's ideal. So you can enter the ball by setting the ball, and eventually you can do 2-on-2 with one person behind the service line on each side. So what they do is instead of setting the ball over the net, you make him serve the ball short and play. So they serve the ball short inside the 10, and then they have to run inside the 10-foot line and then play. Pass, set, tip. And then you have another person, remember, so you're playing 3 versus 3 with one person holding the ball behind the service line. Make sense? Let me put you on mute here. Yeah. So these are things that you can do for warm-up when they enter. I love pepper. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of pepper. But when I pepper over the net. Okay. But I wouldn't do it at tryouts because it does require, the way I do pepper, for example, is we play 4-on-4. So 3 and 3 in the back, and then 1 setter at the net if you want. We're playing deep court, pepper over the net. It doesn't, and I wouldn't call, like I tell the setters, make sure the ball is 7 feet off. So even if they step, I tell them the 10-foot line does not exist, but I want the set to be off. So what I do is I tell one side, you're going to hit angle. And then I tell the other side, you're going to go down the line. So they're going all out, except for the arm swing, the 70% speed. Angle, one side is only going angle, one side is going across their body down the line. Pepper. And then we switch. And then eventually what I tell them is, okay, we're going to go 4 times in a row. You're going to keep the ball 4 times in a row, and then the ball is live. You go for the kill. Okay? And that's one of my favorite as well. I kind of teach the players to move the ball around and work on what I call hand control. See, ball control is important. And most coaches can identify ball control. Look for the players who can do this, hand control. And obviously, if you have a player who plays beach volleyball, that's an easy thing for them to do. You can tell the kids who play beach. They're able to move the ball around and they got the shots. Questions? Does this answer your question, Mike? Yeah. So does this cover stretching as well? Stretching is not, we don't do stretching during practice. The kids can stretch before practice if they want. But once practice is over, we can spend time stretching. But it's never during the time of practice. That's on them. Including warm-ups, just so you guys know. Like obviously in high school it's a little bit different. But for me, if my practice starts at 6, my kids have to be in the gym at 20 minutes before 6. And I teach them how to warm up. They do their own warm-up. Ball handling. Again, I show them how to do it. And then after that, at 6 o'clock, we are ready to go. No conditioning, no jogging, no stretching. We are touching the ball as much as we can. Okay? So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. To be honest with you, it's kind of overrated before practice. But you want to do it after practice. Okay? The stretching part. Dynamic stretching is not bad. It's better than static. Where you sit on the floor and you stretch. Stuff you want to do after practice. Let's see here. Can you see that? Yeah? Okay. So let's go back to new school volleyball or new school practice. Reading and seeing the play is the #1 skill in any sport. Okay, so Basketball, what separates the good from the great is a point guard that can see the game, anticipates. In any sport, it's always the person who can see the game, person with the vision, somebody with a good, what I call good reading skills. It's not any different in volleyball. Okay, some of the best indoor players are players who play beach volleyball, no question about it. Why? Because when you play beach, your reading skills get better, whether you like it or not. You get better. Okay. And again, it's going to go back. Some of the stuff I repeated already, but ball handling to warm up. We talked about it already. You definitely want to if you want to do your warm up, ball handle. And again, when I say warm up, I'm not talking about the 20 minutes before practice. That's when you start practice. You can definitely do your own stuff as well. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but you can. Pepper is not ball control. Pepper over the net is game like. As I said before, I love pepper over the net. And it doesn't have to be the way I explained it. You can play 2-on-2. So you remember the game that I told you guys, pass, set, set. So instead of pass, set, set, you're going to go pass, set, hit. And I usually tell the players, everything is all out, except for your arm swing, is about 50 to 70% speed. That's pepper. But everything else is all out. Okay? So I love pepper like this. I love it. Positional work, going back to your question, Carolyn, is minimal and followed by the next progression. So that's really what I meant by having passers and hitters, is I modify my block practice so it's more game-like. The more coaches are removed, the better. Remove yourself. You don't need to hit down balls. You don't need to hit the free balls. Okay. Let them do it, even if it's going to be ugly at first. But we shy away from doing that because coaches, we don't like ugly. Well, ugly is part of the process. Okay, so it's going to get chaotic at one point and you have to be okay with it because that's how they learn. It's part of the process. I visited practice one time, I'm not going to give you the name, where the coach made the players catch the ball if it wasn't perfect, a perfect pass or a perfect dig. They had to catch it, get rid of it, and then start again. I don't personally agree with that. I don't, because the game is not played in a perfect fashion. As a matter of fact, I tell my team, look, there's going to be some ugly plays and there's going to be some good plays. The whole point of training is to eventually see more good than ugly. See, like that's more game-like. You're still going to see ugly, but the whole point is to see more good. You want more good than ugly. And if you do that, then your team has improved. But you cannot ask your team to be perfect. Yeah, I stay away from saying things like, give me 100%. Let me turn this off. Give me 100%. Give me 120%. It doesn't exist. You know, I talk about effort. Don't get me wrong. But I always talk about, hey, you know, let's see how close to 100% we can come today. You know, that to me is more attainable than telling a player, give me 120%, which is not real, there's no impossible. Nobody can. Okay. Serving should be incorporated in every game. I don't play any game. And by the way, I don't call them drills. I don't have drills in my gym. Everything is a game. Drill has a negative connotation. Game is a game. The game of volleyball is a game. So everything we do in our gym is a game. So we don't play a game unless there's serving involved. However, what I do is it's never only serving. Never. So we don't just serve and then wait 10, 15, 20 seconds till you serve the next ball. It's always a combination of balls. So you serve and then maybe you chip a ball from this side and then you chip a ball from the other side. So it's a 3-ball series, for example. It could be a 2-ball series. Okay, maybe a serve and then a free ball, for example. Whatever we do, it is always a combination of balls. Never only serving. Why? Because I want to maximize touches, pace, touches, let them get a lot of touches. 6-on-6 with player entering the balls. I may say, hey, Ray, I'm going to toss the ball to you. you're gonna jump behind the 10-foot line, and you're gonna go 50% arm swing to the other side. And then we're gonna play it out. Instead of me entering the ball, Ray is doing it. He's a player on the court, and it's more game-like. Okay, conditioning. As I said earlier on, 80% concept. In my gym, if I tell the players go get water, they go 80% speed. If I ask them to go shag, 80% speed. So every time the ball is dead, they're always going 80% speed. Well, guess what? You're gonna get freshmen in my gym, and the first 2 weeks, they can barely finish practice. They are huffing and puffing. But again, I don't do conditioning specifically. I just tell everybody, you're going 80%. Every time the ball is dead. And every time the ball is in the air, you're going 100%. Simple. So in 2 weeks and obviously along with the playing, you're doing that and you're playing at a fast pace. Guess what? Your players are going to be conditioned physically. And then we talked about it, 1.5 to maybe 1. That's a mistake. It should be 1.75. It's a typo. Questions before we get into some more specific stuff?
Hey, Coach Burns.
Hey, Coach.
My question is, you say the coaches should be removed as much as possible. Could you explain that a little better?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you're playing 6-on-6, like for example, you serve a ball and then you have a coach sending a free ball over to the other side.
Okay,
So instead of the coach doing it, have the players do it.
yeah, gotcha.
So I can maybe bounce the ball and tell the players you have one contact to send the ball over the net.
Gotcha,
So that's you removing yourself from the game, from the drill.
got it.
Makes sense, yeah. So and again, we do it as coaches because we don't like chaos. We want things to be organized and perfect. But again, that's the opposite of how the game is. You go up, you block. There's an element to the game of volleyball that doesn't exist to the extent that volleyball has it in any other sport, which is randomness. It does exist in basketball and soccer, but not in a sudden impactful way, if you know what I mean. I'll explain. You go up to block, you're here, and that ball touches your hands, and you don't know which direction the ball is going to go. It can go up, it can go to the left, it can go to the right. So that to me is very unique to the game of volleyball, randomness. It's the only game where you have to go backward. The only reason why you go back is to prepare to go forward. So when you transition off the net, you transition off the net because you're preparing to go forward. While in other games, you actually run back, like soccer on defense or basketball, and then you have to run forward on offense. Volleyball, the only time you go back is to go forward again, to prepare to go forward. So that's a unique element to the game of volleyball. And why do I say that? Because when it comes to training, you want to know why you do the things that you do, right? So randomness, to me, that's big. I mean, it's spontaneity, very spontaneous. You got to be, as a player, I mean, it's a fast game. It's got to be spontaneous. You know, the ball is hitting the blocker's hands and you don't know which direction it's going to go. So you got to be spontaneous. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of going off on a tangent here, but that's all right. What else? All right. If you guys don't mind, I'll get you guys go back on mute. Player versus position. I go to obviously, as I watch a lot of volleyball, whether it's college, high school, or, you know, like I said, recruiting, or even club. And as I'm watching, I think about maybe 5 years ago, I'm watching a club team play another club team, and it was a big match. You can see a lot of college coaches, you know, kind of gather around the court watching the players. It's packed, parents, you know, fans, big match. And then I look at, you know, one of the teams, and I see that, in my opinion, who I thought is the best athlete. But again, she's raw. She's a raw athlete, but she was the best athlete, okay, on his roster, maybe even both teams. And I see her sitting on the bench. Why? Because that best athlete is playing the middle position. And he's got two middles already on the court. And I'm saying to myself, and this was, again, it wasn't early in the year. It was like March or April, I think. And I'm saying to myself, I'm like, as a coach, you don't play positions. Find the best athletes and you change the position for them. I know it's not as easy to say for the setter, for example. Yeah, for that, you need somebody with a lot of experience. I get that. But when it comes to hitters, opposite middles or left sides, okay, find the best athletes, put them on the court and train them. But don't have your best athlete sit on a bench because she is your number 3 middle. Guess what? Make her your number 1 opposite. Okay, that's what you gotta do. So I tell my players, especially in the summer, I tell them, I don't train positions. I train volleyball players. And then I decide what positions they should play. That's why in my gym, I don't call them left sides. I don't call them right sides. They're called pin hitters. Pin hitters. You have to hit on the left as well as you want to hit on the right. Okay. How do you pick your liberos? You have tryouts. You want to pick your liberos. The best defender or the best passer? You'd like to have both. You'd like to have the best passer and the defender, but it's not always the case. But if I had to pick one person, obviously I'm going to pick the person who's going to serve receive the best. That should be your libero. Serve receive. Why? Okay. On the statistical categories, serve receive is more important than digging. Okay. If anything, in the women's game, it's number 1. And this is not an opinion. This is a fact. So you definitely want your best passer on the court all the time. Now, you have a libero who can pass, and she's your best defender. Icing on the cake. Easy decision. Make sense? So where do I want to play my libero? Middle back or left back? If you watch, the national team during the Olympics, they had to play left back. And the reason why at the national and the international level you have the libero play left back is because you have the pipe attack. You have somebody like Jordan Larson who can hit the ball away and score behind the 10-foot line. Okay, so if you don't have that, which to be honest with you, I don't see that a lot, even at not the highest college levels, but even in college, you don't have the pipe to me or the back row attack is a low percentage hit. If it's a low percentage hit, then you definitely want to play your libero middle back or your best defender as well. Okay, not libero, your best defender, I should say. Okay. Any questions here? So again, when you go into tryouts tomorrow, look at them as pin hitters. Don't look at it as opposite or left side. Eliminate that. Just watch them as athletes. You can decide later where you want to put them. Don't cut a player because she's raw. If she's athletic, she's on the team. Especially if the work ethic is there. Okay. And you can tell. You can tell from the body language, from how the kids are playing, whether they have the work ethic or not. A good head on the shoulders. All right. How to pick your left side hitters. How about the opposite? So pin hitters, obviously here. OH1, OH2, M1, M2. Who doesn't know what I'm talking about? Who doesn't know what I'm talking about here? So, no, we all do. We all know. So if you start in rotation 1, you sure? If you start in rotation 1, your OH1 is right front. If your setter is right back, okay, your best, no, I shouldn't say your best. Your OH1, okay, is right front, or is the person serving after your setter. So she's lagging the setter, okay? And your OH2 would be left back. She's leading the setter. How do you pick your OH1? So OH1, the best way to think of this is your OH1 is in the front row with the setter twice. Your OH2 is in the front row with the setter once. So how do you pick your OH1? Who should be your OH1? To me, your OH1 should be the big banger on the team, the person who can put balls away, the person who's going to get a lot of jump sets because your team goes out of system or what I call off balance, and she's going to have to learn to put balls away when everybody in the gym knows that she's going to get set. That's your OH1. So somebody with a heavy arm, big outside hitter. Your OH2 should be a person who can serve receive better than your OH1. Okay, obviously, again, if your OH1 is a good serve receive passer, icing on the cake. But if you have to pick between the two, you want to pick your big kahuna versus the outside hitter who can pass the ball. And if you look at the rotations, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, you can hide your OH1, but there is one rotation where you cannot hide your OH2. So she's got to be a good serve receive passer, especially if your opposite plays all the way around and she's not being subbed out with a DS. Okay, I'm going to share with you guys some numbers too in a sec. How about your M1 and M2? M1 is in the front row with the setter twice. Okay. M2 is in the front row with the setter once. So M1 to me is a person, again, who can hit behind the setter, like the slide. That should be your M1. M2 should be a person who can hit in front of the setter. Okay. Any questions? Does this make sense what I'm talking about? I mean, I'm really big on obviously hitting the slide. And sometimes I even make my favorite system is actually a 3 middle system where I have an M1 and M2, and then my opposite is my M3. So my opposite is actually hitting the slide behind the setter. That's my favorite system, if I can find the personnel for it. And remember, you got to have the personnel. You got to work around what you have. Don't force a system, okay, onto your players if you don't have the personnel. If I like to do a 3 middle system and I don't have the personnel, I'm not going to do it. Like right now, my college team, I don't have a real outstanding setter. So I keep it simple. I'm not talking about setting the ball fast, or high. I just got to tell her, look, there's only one set. I just want you to set what we call the hut. And this is what I want you to work on. Just one set. I keep it simple. So work with your personnel. Sometimes we get, sticklers of systems. Like we want to play within a certain system and we try to force it onto the players, but they don't have the tactical and the technical knowledge to play the system. Got to change. That's your job as a coach. Okay.
What if you're running like a 6-2? Like, how do you determine? Do you just
Say it again?
What if you're running a 6-2? Do you just
if you're running a
setter
6-2
works with a hitter better, or?
Yeah, well, if you're running a 6-2 I would keep it very simple. I'd run the 1 or maybe the 31 if you have a good middle and a good setter. So 1, 31, and then the left side hitter and then the opposite. But you can still run the slide if you have two opposites who can run it. If not, keep it very simple. In front of the
How do you
setter.
pick which hitter? Like, do you just pick?
How do you pick?
Setter
good
hitter
question.
combination. Like with
Good
the
question.
01?
Good question. I'm gonna get to it in a second. You pick the setter who sets your left side, or this is what you want to do. You pick your setter because sometimes you have setters, especially if they're rookie setters who cannot, who they don't have good technical, or maybe they don't have the strength. So if the ball is passed a little bit to the right side of the court, they have a hard time getting the ball to the left side. Makes sense? Okay, so I would not put my best left side over there. Either you would switch the left side or I would switch the center. You pick one or the other. But the point I'm making is you want to put the best outside hitter with the setter who can get the ball to them, even when they go off balance. That's key. Yeah. Hopefully I answered the question, but that's what I would do. Like right now, my college team, again, my setters are kind of, freshman setters. Not a lot of knowledge, so I'm working with them. So I don't pass the ball to the right side of the court. I actually pass the ball to the middle of the court. So our serve receive is actually to the middle because the setter has a hard time pushing the ball all the way to the left side. So we find a way to kind of make it easy on her and we wanted to have more success. And obviously I want the hitters to have more success. So we modify, we change. Vernon, you don't really possess the ball in volleyball. Oh, you're making a comment?
Well, that was going back to the difference between volleyball and other sports.
Oh yeah, rebound.
How you don't control the ball. It's really
You don't catch it.
reflections.
The rebound game. Yep. Very, very, very. Yeah, I actually forgot that. I actually have that. I call it. It's a rebound game. Yep. Perfect. Good job. All right, let's go back. Yeah, that's a very good. Glad you reminded me. All right. The power of the beach game. So, and now I'm kind of getting into, hey, you pick your team. And now you're getting into, hey, we want to do the first 2 weeks of practice. What do I do? Again, my advice to you is you play, but you don't have to play 6-on-6. You can play 3-on-3. You can play 4-on-4. But as long as you serve in every game and then you have combination of balls. But that's really the key is you want to make sure the players are playing so you can evaluate. Okay? So the power of the beach game, this is really how you find out who the best volleyball player is. So what I do is the first week of practice, I would play maybe 2-on-2. I would maybe make the court smaller or maybe go on half a court. And I would make sure that, let's say you have 10 players, I make sure that player 1 plays with all 9. And then vice versa. So you put that on the board and you play, and it does, you're probably not going to finish it in one day. So it might take the entire week. Okay. And then at the end, and you tally every time a team wins, you tally up the wins. Like if player A won, you put the number of points. Like, okay, they won 15-7. Okay, you get 15 points. Oh, now you're going to play with another player, but you lost 15-10. You get, 10 points. At the end of the week, tally up the points and see how many points this player had and blah, blah, blah. This will actually give you a good idea of the player who makes her teammates better on the court. Okay, the competitor. And that is big in terms of, who should start, your starters, your top 6 players. So what the point I'm making is that I do tournaments. 2-on-2, you can do 3-on-3, you can do 4-on-4, but I rotate all the players. I make sure that every player is playing with another one. Sometimes I take the best setter and I put him on the other side with another team, and I want to see how the players react and if they get competitive, like, oh my God, no, yeah, you took it away from us or whatever. Sometimes I play games like this, or I might do things such as one team is up, let's say, 17-12. A game, let's say you're playing game to 25. Okay, 17-12. Okay, and then you take one of the best players from the team that has 17 and you put him on the other side and see what happens. So now she's playing on the side that has 12 points. So I do things like that at the beginning of the year because I want to see who's competing, who's being mindful, who's all about the win. Okay. And I don't do 6-on-6 until really, maybe a couple of weeks before the season. And we start working on the rotations a little bit and blah, blah, blah. But until then, my number one concern is how can I get the touches for the players and providing an environment where they can compete. Oh, we lost that. I think we have another question. How do you pick your setters? Oh yeah, I mean, you know, setters obviously. We lost you there, Roy. The setters to me, obviously, you want a setter who is. Do I pick a setter with good hands? Let me ask you the question this way, and let me actually stop. That's a very good question, and I did a clinic on that, by the way. I'm going to do another one. But do you pick a setter with good hands and slow, or you pick a setter who is athletic and quick, but not as good of hands? Which one?
Pass.
100%. You can teach that. Okay. Especially the footwork. But I mean, speed is speed. In the end, you can do whatever you want. You can do maybe plyometrics training. You can do whatever. You can improve it a little bit. I'm not saying that player, but you know, person is fast or not. I mean, it's either your DNA or not. So either you have it or you don't. So I definitely want to pick a setter who is quick, athletic, maybe somebody who's physical. If you have that option, somebody physical at the net. If not, no big deal. I won a state championship with a setter who was 5'2". And we didn't have a block at the net when she was in the front. And she was the only setter I had, by the way, no sub. Tough cookie. She played with almost fractured tibia all year. Like a real bad case of shin splints, to the point where she can't tolerate the pain at the end of practice. Anyway, story for another day. But when she gets to the front row, we only did 2 blockers, and she would play behind him. And we won a state championship in 2010. So again, you find a way. You don't need to be one of the best setters ever to play for the women's national team. Is I think 5'3", 5'4". Debbie Green. She's no more than 5'4". Still today, a lot of people, consider her as one of the best setters. She coached at Long Beach State, and she coached many All-American setters, including Misty May. And by the way, every setter that she coached became an All-American. So that says a lot about her as a coach. But still today considered one of the best setters ever to play the game. And she was only 5'3", 5'4". So yeah, you don't need to be a monster. Obviously, it's a big plus. You have somebody who's physical, going back to the point I was making, but I definitely want to pick a setter who's fast, quick feet. And I can, this to me is easy. I can teach that. I can teach the footwork. Simple. Hopefully this answers your question, Miguel. And then going back to the final thing, a game that I like to play, and I think you guys, if you attended my clinics, you heard me talk about it. I call it volley sal. Why volley sal? Because I stole it from the indoor soccer game called futsal. Some of the best soccer players in the world play futsal, which is an indoor soccer game that requires only 7, maybe I think 7 players, or maybe 8. I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe 7, I think. And you play on like cement, like a hard terrain. What does that mean? It means the ball is going to bounce faster. So your foot control will get better. And instead of having 11 on the field, you only have 7, which means what? More touches for the players. So volley sal is a game I created, which is 4-on-4. The 10-foot line does not exist. Just like kind of like you're playing beach, no open hand tip, but you can go off speed if you want. And then we play at the net, and then we have all this here, and I'm going to share this with you. You're going to have to write it. You don't have to write it down. But these are just examples of how you can create games that make sense to me, But it's always a combination. If you notice, it's always combination. Serve, spin, spin. Serve, free ball, free ball. Serve, free ball. Okay? XLH in my gym is called transition. X is transition, like hit. So what is a transition like hit? I ask a specific player, hey, transition off the net. I'm going to toss the ball. You're going all out except for your arm swing. And then we're going to transition and play it out. That's called transition like hit. But again, the games are self-explanatory. I can send them to you if you have any questions. I'll answer more than happy to show you how, but it's pretty simple. You're playing 4-on-4. The setter does not have to be at the net. You can actually put a middle at the net and then have your setter play back row. Make sense? So she doesn't have to be at the net like you're playing deep court. Yep. Then you can play 3 like this and then 1 person at the net. Or if you want to go a little more advanced, you can go 2 and 2. 2 in the back, 2 in the front. So 2 people at the net, 2 in the back. And then you keep that, and that's volley cell. But that's what I would do the first couple of weeks of practice. I would play over the net as much as I can. Play at the net. The deep court is, yes, you may have a player who can put the ball away, but it's still, very rare that you have somebody who can do that all the time on a consistent basis. Play at the net because you want the rally to end sooner, so you end up serving and passing more than hitting and digging. Questions?
So the question is, sometimes you have a player that if you don't want to have him in the bench, let's say sometimes I have 3 good middles or 4 good middles.
Uh-huh.
So I can send one to the opposite. But they had so ingrained their role when they come from high school that it's like if they have a mental block, that they can only be middles. So how do you overcome that with a player?
No, you overcome it by training. Yeah, you just obviously the player has to want to make the change. If a player is not committed to making a change, you can hire Phil Jackson. It's not going to matter, So the player has to be committed. So you obviously have to talk to them about their role. Tell them, look, this is what I think is best for the team. Okay, it's called role clarity. Okay, you clarify the role for somebody. Okay, but they have to be okay with it. And if they're okay with it, then they can commit to making the change. But they have to understand that you're committing to making the change because it's going to make your team better. So that's really how you get them to commit. And yes, it may take some time, like I said, but you have to respect the process. If somebody never played opposite before, it's going to take some time before they get comfortable. But again, that's the mistake that coaches make. They give up sometimes too early. Stick to it and see what happens.
Okay.
I mean, in my system with the 3 middle system, I remember in 2011, my opposite, she was a middle, and I put her on the right side, and we kept hitting the what I call the slide, and not really successful at it at first. It took a good 10, 11 matches into the season until finally we started connecting consistent basis. And I remember the match we played. I think we played at Bakersfield College, and the coach is a good friend of mine. And he had a scouting report on us and blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden he's like, "Where did this come from?" I said, "Well, we last time we played you, we had it. We're not as effective." So you just got to stick to it. Stick to the process. Coaches give up too early, like players. Okay. As long as the players is putting forth the effort, keep working. What else?
How often, I know the topic is like the beginning parts of the season, but if you could talk about like how often do you, or if you do run like situational practices, or what sometimes I call like problem solving drills, or the mind games where it's like I've seen out there like the volleyball bingo where you give each team a card and they have to accomplish or run a slide here.
Yeah, I mean,
how often do you do that?
Yeah, I've actually done what you talked about. I think anything that's fun, and as long as you know why you're doing it. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. Like you give them a card and they pick a situation and then they have to get out of it or play it out. I think that's awesome. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, you do stuff like that, players like it. And what it does, it breaks the redundancy a little bit. But again, as long as you're playing a game and you know why you're playing it, as long as you design every single one of them with a specific objective or goal in mind, Yeah, I'm all for it. I play, like I played a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I played a game. Hey, you play a normal game where we serve and then maybe we'll do a spin or a toss, whatever the case might be. Every point counts. And then when you get to 20, if you overpass the ball, let's say you have 23 and you overpass the ball, you go back to 20. Or let's say it's 23-20 and then you make a serving error. You go back to 20, you lose all your points. So once you get to 20, basically what I'm saying is that we want to, play with no service errors, maybe no hitting errors, and no overpasses, for example. Whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. Or you can do things like, hey, 20-20, and guess what? If you set the middles, you get 2 points. So you're saying, obviously, you're basically saying our passing has to be on point. Things like that. I mean, yeah, to me, games like that, as long as you know why, and they know why, I'm all for it. But as long as, like, I don't do washes anymore. To me, every point counts, just like the way the game is played. Every point counts. The serve, the toss from the coach, the transition like it, everything counts. Make sense? If you have one setter on the court, then I don't mind going offense versus defense. Then you can maybe do offense versus defense. That's okay. You go one way. But you're still playing over the net. What else? Is that good, right? Yeah. Hopefully you guys like that.
It was good.
Yeah. Hopefully you get something out of it. I will share the numbers with you. Actually, I share them today with the players. But basically, on the left side, eventually your goal is to hit as a team, not as one player, to hit 250 hitting percentage. I didn't put it. I'll add it to the agenda. On the right side, you want to hit 275 eventually, and then in the middle, it should be 300. So when you're picking your team, think about that. Make it more objective. So 250, 275, and then 300. Service errors, there should be no more than 10%. So if you serve 50 balls, should be no more than 5 missed serves. Pretty high level, yes. But that's, again, it's a good goal. It's just what I'm trying to say is that when you are training, you want to make sure that you make it, you add mindfulness to your practice or make it purposeful. Don't just play to play, make it more objective. It always makes more sense to the players. When the players know why they're doing it, they're going to play harder.
Can you explain those numbers a little bit more? I don't understand why the person who's probably going to get the most sets is hitting 250.
Yeah, the reason why they're going to hit 250, I'm going to tell you why. Because they're going to get a lot of junk sets. So when you go out of system, when you go off balance, who's getting the most, who's getting a lot of sets? Your left side. So when you get a lot of junk sets, you're going to get sets that are 7 feet off, 8 feet off against 2 or maybe sometimes 3 blockers and a defense that's set already. Because your setter is setting the ball from like 15 feet off. So that's one. So why is it 300 in the middle? Why is the middle's hitting percentage higher than anybody else? Because a lot of time it's what? 101.
Perfect pass.
Yeah, 101. So it's a high percentage hit. So hopefully this answers your question, but that's why it's lower. They get a lot of sets. The left sides are going to get more sets than anybody. So there's more attempts. And I'm not saying every attempt is going to be an error, but attempts where the ball is still in play. That's going to affect the hitting percentage. Make sense? Good question, though. That's good. Yeah, like I assume it was obvious, self-explanatory, but I'm glad you asked. In today's game, internationally, at the international level, it was the men's game, but now the women's game is catching up. But the opposite is the highest paid volleyball player on the team. So the opposite in men's volleyball is the big kahuna, is the guy who can put the ball away front row and back row. And the women's national team is kind of playing that game now too. So the opposite is becoming the position. I mean, it's high paid because, again, they just put balls away. It doesn't mean the libero is not a point or setter. But every team internationally is always looking for that opposite, the big stud. And it was like that, just so you know, in the men's game, it was the same thing back in the 80s. Your opposite used to be the guy who can put the ball away, back row, front row. If anything, the USA volleyball team were the ones who kind of invented the D attack, the back row attack with the opposite. You guys remember what's his name? Timmons? Steve Timmons? Yeah. Big redhead. Well, the reason why they call the set red, I don't know if you guys have heard, the setter, they call it the red, the one behind the setter, is because he was a redhead. And that was his set. But in the 80s, the US volleyball team were the first team to set the back row attack, from the right back position. Like no team did it until they started doing it. Jeff Stork, Steve Timmons, Dusty Dvorak, taking you back down memory lane here. So yeah, hopefully you guys liked it. First practice in 9 hours, I like it.
Hey, Coach, I got one last question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
Of your 1 hour and 40-minute practice, how much of that time is devoted to 6-on-6 game-like training with your players?
Oh, it depends on the season. Like right now, today we did, I call it beach hitting lines, where just for warm up for 5-10 minutes. And then the whole practice was 6-on-6.
Great.
And it was one game. I played one game.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but again, it was competitive. We go after it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. If we're good, then I'll send you guys the info, and we'll talk about setting next time. We'll do a clinic on setting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care. Enjoy your night.
Thanks, Nabil.
You're welcome.